If you don't control your thoughts, they will control your emotions. If they control your emotions, they will control your actions. And if they control your actions, they will quietly decide the direction of your entire life. Most people don't fail because of a lack of talent or opportunity. They fail because they let the same negative thoughts repeat, unchecked, unchallenged, and untrained. This audiobook is not about motivation. It is about mental discipline. It is about learning how to interrupt destructive thinking patterns and replace them with calm, focused confidence, on command. By the end of this audiobook, you will think differently, and that will change everything. Chapter 1. Your thoughts are not you. Stop identifying with them. Most people are trapped, not by circumstances, not by other people, but by their own thoughts. And the reason is simple. They believe every thought they have is true. That's the mistake. That's the trap. That's what ends lives quietly. Here is the truth, and you need to hear it clearly. A thought is just a suggestion, not a command. Say it again. A thought is just a suggestion, not a command. You don't have to obey it. You don't have to react to it, and you certainly don't have to identify with it. But most people do, automatically. A negative thought appears, I'm not good enough, and instead of questioning it, they merge with it, they become it. You have a choice, that's the key. The moment you identify with a thought, you lose control. The moment you observe it, you regain power. This chapter is about creating distance between you and the noise in your head, because you are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. Let's make this real. Think about anxiety. Anxiety doesn't start in the body. It starts as a thought. What if something goes wrong? What if they judge me? What if I fail? One thought becomes 10. 10 become a spiral, and suddenly your heart is racing, your breathing is shallow, and you think something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You just believed a suggestion. That's it. You didn't stop to question it. You didn't pause. You didn't say, this is just a thought. You identified with it, and identification is dangerous. The same thing happens with overthinking conversations. You replay what you said, what they said, what you should have said. Hours pass, energy drains, confidence drops. Why? Because you assumed the thought was reality. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's the discipline you must build. Observation without attachment. When a thought appears, you label it. That's a thought. Not, that's me, not, that's the truth, just, that's a thought. A thought is just a suggestion, not a command. This is not positive thinking, this is controlled thinking. It's not about forcing optimism, it's about refusing unconscious obedience. You don't need their permission to question your own mind. You don't need approval to pause before reacting. And yet most people never do. They wake up tired because they think they're tired. They feel weak because they think they're weak. They feel behind because they think they're behind. Thoughts create states. States create actions. Actions create outcomes. That's the chain. Break it at the source. Let's talk about mistakes, replaying them, punishing yourself for them. You make one error and then you think about it again and again and again. Each replay feels like responsibility, but it's not. It's self-sabotage. You're not fixing the past, you're reinforcing pain. You have a choice. That's the key. You can observe the thought without entering it. You can say, that happened, I learned, moving on. It's not about denial, it's about discipline. It's not about pretending, it's about directing. And here's the rule you must internalize. What you don't question controls you. That's why this chapter matters. Because once you stop identifying with your thoughts, something shifts. You slow down, you breathe, you regain space. Space is power. In that space, you choose your response, not your habit, not your emotion, your response. Most people never experience this. They live inside their thoughts like prisoners. You don't need their permission to step outside. Here's a simple practice. Use it daily. When a thought hits you, especially a negative one, ask one question: is this useful right now? Not, is it true? Usefulness comes first. If it's not useful, you don't engage. You let it pass. Like a car driving by. You don't chase it, you don't argue with it, you don't jump in. You observe. A thought is just a suggestion, not a command. Repeat that until it becomes automatic. This is where calm begins. Not by changing the world, by changing your relationship with your mind. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being intentional. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness. And awareness gives you choice. You have a choice. That's the key. The strongest people you know are not thought-free. They are thought-disciplined. They don't believe everything they think. They don't react to every impulse. They don't confuse noise with truth. They observe, they decide, they move forward. That's what you're building here. Because if you can't control identification, you can't control emotion. And if you can't control emotion, you can't control action. This chapter is the foundation. You stopped merging with the noise. You stepped back. You became the observer. And now that you've created distance from your thoughts, you're ready for the next discipline. You've learned to see the thought. Now you must learn to catch it early, before it turns into a mood. You don't react late, you intervene early. That's where real control begins. Chapter 2. Catch the thought before it becomes a mood. Emotions do not come out of nowhere. They never have. They never will. Thoughts come first, always. Say it again. Thoughts come first, always. If you miss that moment, you lose the advantage. If you catch it early, you stay in control. That's the difference between disciplined people and emotional people. Timing. Most people wait too long. They notice the emotion after it is already taken over, after the mood has settled in, after the day is already ruined. You have a choice. That's the key. You can intervene early, or you can clean up the damage later. Let's talk about mornings. You wake up. Nothing bad has happened yet. No emails, no conversations, no problems. But a thought appears. I didn't sleep enough. Today's going to be rough. I'm already behind. That single thought is small, quiet, easy to miss, but you let it stay. 5 minutes later, your body feels heavy, your motivation drops, your patience shrinks. You say, I'm in a bad mood. No, you missed the thought. Thoughts come first, always. It's not about being a morning person, it's about mental discipline. You don't need their permission to interrupt that process. You don't need evidence to question a thought that's dragging you down. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's the truth most people avoid. Moods are built. They're constructed slowly, thought by thought. No one just feels bad for no reason. They think themselves there. Another example, small triggers. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A comment feels dismissive. A message goes unanswered. The trigger is minor, but the reaction is big. Why? Because the thought wasn't caught early. They don't respect me. That was intentional. Here we go again. One thought becomes a story. The story becomes emotion. The emotion becomes behavior. Snapping, withdrawing, carrying tension all day. You have a choice. That's the key. You can stop the story before it forms. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's about preventing unnecessary ones. It's not about pretending things don't bother you. It's about refusing to let one thought hijack your entire system. And here's the discipline you must practice: early detection. You don't wait until you're angry. You catch irritation. You don't wait until you're anxious. You catch uncertainty. You don't wait until you're discouraged. You catch doubt. Because once emotion takes over, logic is weak. But before it builds, logic is powerful. That's the window. Most people miss it because they're distracted. They live on autopilot. They assume moods are automatic. They're not. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's a practical rule. Memorize it. If your emotion shifts, rewind your thoughts. Don't ask, "Why do I feel this way?" Ask, "What was I thinking right before this?" That question alone builds awareness. You'll start noticing patterns, predictable thoughts, repeated phrases in your head. "I always mess this up. This is going to take forever. They never listen." Those thoughts are the spark, not the fire. And sparks are easy to extinguish if you catch them early. It's not about perfection, it's about timing. It's not about never feeling bad, it's about shortening the duration. That's discipline. Another example: letting one thought ruin an entire day. Something goes wrong in the morning. Late start, minor mistake. The thought appears: today's already messed up. And instead of challenging it, you accept it. You carry it. Every inconvenience confirms it. Every delay reinforces it. By afternoon, you say, "This day was terrible." No, one thought went unchallenged. You have a choice. That's the key. You could have said, "This moment is inconvenient. The day is not ruined." But you didn't catch it. Catching thoughts early is not passive. It's active, intentional. You must be alert. That's why this is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with repetition. You won't catch every thought at first. That's fine. But each time you do, you weaken the habit of emotional overreaction. And remember this: it's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Emotion is the outcome. Discipline is the cause. You don't need their permission to pause before reacting. You don't need validation to choose calm over chaos. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's another tool. Use it immediately. Name the thought. Not analyze it, not argue with it. Just name it. That's doubt. That's impatience. That's assumption. Naming creates distance. Distance creates control. The moment you name it, you're no longer inside it. You're above it. A thought is just a suggestion, not a command, and early detection proves it. Most people think emotional control means managing anger. That's late-stage thinking. Real control happens before emotion forms. That's why calm people seem unshakable. They don't wait until the storm hits. They stop the clouds from forming. You're learning to do the same. This chapter is about speed, mental speed. The faster you catch the thought, the less power it has. Slow awareness creates fast recovery. Fast awareness prevents damage. That's the key. And don't miss this. If you fail to catch the thought early, don't quit. Don't judge yourself. Notice, learn, adjust. Discipline is built through correction, not perfection. You have a choice. That's the key. As you master this, your days change. Your reactions shrink. Your emotional swings stabilize. Not because life got easier, because your thinking got sharper. And that brings us closer to the core of this entire audiobook. Control your thoughts before they control you. You've learned to observe thoughts. You've learned to catch them early. Now it's time to deal with what happens when you don't, the loops that repeat, drain, and destroy momentum. You caught the spark. Next, we break the cycle. Chapter 3. Negative loops destroy more lives than failure ever will. Failure is loud. Negative loops are quiet. Failure happens once. Negative thinking repeats. And repetition creates reality. Say it again. Repetition creates reality. Most people are not destroyed by one bad decision. They are destroyed by replaying the same thought thousands of times. That's the danger. You can fail and recover, but if you repeat the same negative thought long enough, it becomes your identity. You start saying, "That's just how I am." No, that's just what you've been rehearsing. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's define a negative loop. A negative loop is a thought that repeats without producing action or solutions. It drains energy, it weakens confidence, it clouds judgment. And it feels productive, but it's not. Self-doubt is a loop, regret is a loop, comparison is a loop, and repetition creates reality. Let's start with self-doubt. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. That thought appears once, then again, then again. Each time you repeat it, you train your nervous system to believe it. Your posture changes, your voice changes, your decisions shrink. Not because the thought was true, because it was repeated. Repetition creates reality. You have a choice. That's the key. You can interrupt the loop, or you can let it run until it defines you. Most people let it run. They say, "I'm just being realistic." No, you're being repetitive. It's not about honesty, it's about discipline. It's not about acknowledging flaws, it's about refusing mental sabotage. You don't need their permission to stop doubting yourself. You don't need proof to stop rehearsing weakness. Next loop, regret. What if I had done things differently? I should have known better. I ruined my chance. Regret feels responsible, but endless regret is not responsibility, it's paralysis. You replay the past again and again, but the past doesn't change, only your present energy does. Repetition creates reality. And when you repeat regret, you live mentally behind yourself. You hesitate, you second-guess, you delay decisions. Not because you're cautious, because you're stuck. You have a choice. That's the key. You can learn from the past once or punish yourself forever. It's not about ignoring mistakes, it's about extracting the lesson and moving forward. Anything beyond that is self-destruction disguised as reflection. Another loop, comparison. They're ahead of me. They figured it out. I'm behind. Comparison feeds on repetition. The more you compare, the smaller you feel. The smaller you feel, the less you act. And the less you act, the more behind you become. Repetition creates reality. Comparison doesn't inform you, it drains you. You don't need their permission to run your own race. You don't need to measure your life against someone else's highlight reel. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's the pattern you must see clearly. Thought repeats. Emotion stabilizes around it. Behavior adapts to it. Over time, it feels normal. That's how negative loops win. They don't attack, they settle in. And once they feel familiar, you stop questioning them. That's why this chapter matters. Because if you don't interrupt loops, they will quietly decide your future. And don't confuse loops with problem solving. They are not the same. Problem solving leads to action. Loops lead to fatigue. Ask yourself this. Does this thought move me forward or keep me stuck? If it keeps you stuck, it's a loop. And loops must be broken. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's how you break them. First, you identify the loop. You name it. This is self-doubt. This is regret. This is comparison. Naming removes mystery. Mystery gives power. Second, you interrupt repetition. You do not argue with the thought. You do not justify it. You do not expand it. You replace it. Because repetition creates reality, and replacement rewires it. You replace "I'm not ready" with "I'm learning as I go." You replace "I ruined everything" with "I extracted the lesson." You replace "I'm behind" with "I'm focused on my lane." Not because it feels good, because it stops the damage. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Third, you redirect behavior. Negative loops die when action starts. Even small action, especially small action. Action breaks repetition. Motion disrupts rumination. That's why sitting still while thinking is dangerous. The mind loops when the body doesn't move. You have a choice. That's the key. Move, act, shift, and expect resistance. Your mind will try to pull you back because loops feel familiar, even when they hurt. But don't confuse familiarity with safety. Most people choose familiar suffering over unfamiliar discipline. You don't need their permission to choose better. Let me say this clearly. Failure can teach you. Negative loops only drain you. Failure happens in moments. Negative loops happen daily. Failure challenges you. Negative loops weaken you. That's why negative loops destroy more lives than failure ever will. And remember this phrase, burn it into your mind. Repetition creates reality. Whatever you repeat internally, you reinforce externally. So choose carefully. You have a choice. That's the key. As you master this, you'll notice something powerful. Your energy returns, your decisions sharpen, your confidence stabilizes. Not because life became easy, because your mind became quieter. You're no longer fighting yesterday. You're no longer competing with illusions. You're no longer doubting every step. You're moving forward. This chapter taught you what drains you. The next one will teach you what builds you. Because stopping a loop is half the work, you must replace it with something stronger. You broke the pattern. Now you install a better one. Chapter 4. Replace, don't resist. The only way to win mentally. Most people lose the mental battle before it even starts. Not because they're weak, but because they fight the wrong way. They resist thoughts. They argue with them. They try to suppress them. And that never works. Fighting a thought gives it energy. Attention feeds it. Resistance strengthens it. That's the mistake. Here's the rule you must understand if you want mental control. Fighting thoughts makes them stronger. Replacing them makes them irrelevant. That's the key. Say this clearly. What you replace consistently, you rewire permanently. Again, what you replace consistently, you rewire permanently. You have a choice. That's the key. Most people say, I'm trying to stop thinking negatively. That's the wrong goal. The mind does not respond to stop. It responds to direction. If you tell your mind, don't think about failure, it thinks about failure. If you tell your mind, don't be anxious, it focuses on anxiety. It's not about resistance, it's about replacement. It's not about force, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission to redirect your own thoughts. Let's make this practical. A negative thought appears. I'm not good enough. Most people argue with it. I am good enough. They repeat it. They force it. That creates tension. Instead, you replace it with something neutral and grounding. I'm improving. I'm practicing. I'm learning. Not hype, not lies, direction. Because the brain accepts consistency, not intensity. What you replace consistently, you rewire permanently. Another example, I'm overwhelmed. Resisting it doesn't help. You just feel more overwhelmed. Replacing it works. This is one step at a time. I'll handle the next action. That's it. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing a thought that leads to action. You have a choice. That's the key. Forced positivity is fragile. Neutral clarity is strong. This is where most people get it wrong. They think replacement means lying to themselves. It doesn't. Replacement means choosing a better tool. If a thought drains energy, replace it. If a thought creates movement, keep it. It's not about how it feels, it's about what it produces. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Here's another example. I always mess things up. You don't resist it, you don't debate it, you replace it. I correct mistakes quickly. I adjust and move forward. That thought doesn't inflate your ego, it stabilizes you. and stability beats motivation every time. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's the deeper truth. Your mind is a pattern machine. It runs on repetition. Whatever thought you repeat most becomes your default. That's why replacement must be consistent, not dramatic, not occasional, consistent. What you replace consistently, you rewire permanently. If you replace a thought once, nothing changes. If you replace it daily, patterns shift. This is training, not inspiration. Let's talk about anxiety again. An anxious thought appears. What if this goes wrong? You don't resist it, you replace it. I'll handle it if it does. I've handled worse. That's it. You don't need certainty, you need capability. Replacement trains capability. Another example, comparison. They're ahead of me. You don't fight it, you replace it. I'm focused on my process. My pace is intentional. That removes the poison. Comparison thrives on repetition. Replacement starves it. You have a choice. That's the key. Now here's the rule you must follow. Never leave a negative thought unreplaced. If you catch it and do nothing, it returns, stronger. If you resist it, it pushes back, harder. But if you replace it, it fades, because the mind can't hold two dominant thoughts at once. Replacement is redirection, and redirection is control. You don't need their permission to take control of your inner world. Let's make this behavioral. Here's what you do starting today. Step 1, catch the thought. You already learned this. Step 2, label it. This is doubt. This is fear. This is impatience. Step 3, replace it immediately. Not later, not after emotion builds, immediately. Short, simple, repeatable. That's discipline. It's not about having the perfect replacement phrase, it's about having one ready. Because hesitation allows the old thought to stay. Preparation wins. You have a choice. That's the key. And don't underestimate this. Replacement feels boring at first because chaos feels familiar. But boring discipline creates powerful stability. Your confidence will start feeling quiet. Your calm will feel unexciting. That's a good sign, because emotional swings are a sign of lack of control, and control is what you're building. It's not about intensity, it's about discipline. Let me be clear, you will never eliminate negative thoughts. That's not the goal. The goal is to stop letting them stay. They knock, you answer briefly, you redirect. That's mastery. You don't need their permission to stop entertaining thoughts that drain you. And here's the final reminder for this chapter. Whatever you practice mentally, you become behaviorally. Repetition creates reality. Replacement shapes repetition. What you replace consistently, you rewire permanently. Say it again. What you replace consistently, you rewire permanently. This is how you win mentally, not by fighting harder, but by choosing better. You've learned to observe thoughts, you've learned to catch them early, you've learned to break loops, now you've learned how to install stronger patterns. And that leads to the next level. Because once your thoughts are controlled, your emotions stabilize. And when emotions stabilize, calm becomes a skill, not a coincidence. You stopped resisting, you started replacing. Now it's time to build something powerful on top of that foundation. Chapter 5. Calm is a skill, not a personality trait. Most people think calm is something you're born with. They say, I'm just not a calm person. They say, that's just my personality. That's a lie they accepted because it was convenient. Calm is not a personality trait. Calm is a trained response. Say it again. Calm is a trained response. And that changes everything. Because if calm is trained, it can be built. And if it can be built, you are responsible for it. You have a choice. That's the key. Reactive people believe calm people are lucky. Disciplined people know calm people are prepared. Calm is not the absence of pressure. Calm is control under pressure. Let's be clear about something important. Life does not get calmer. Responsibility increases. Pressure increases. Decisions get heavier. So if your calm depends on circumstances, you will lose it. That's why calm must come from skill, not from comfort. It's not about temperament, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission to stop reacting emotionally. You don't need a peaceful environment to think clearly. You need training. Let's look at high-pressure situations. A difficult conversation, a confrontation, a disagreement. Reactive people speak fast. They interrupt. They defend. Calm thinkers pause. They listen. They choose words. And the calm thinker almost always wins. Not because they're nicer, because they're clearer. Clarity beats emotion every time. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's what calm actually is. Calm is delayed reaction. Calm is space between stimulus and response. Calm is thinking before speaking. And that space is trained. You don't magically get it, you build it. Most people react because they've never practiced not reacting. They feel something, they express it immediately. That's not honesty, that's lack of discipline. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Here's another example. Uncertainty. Most people panic when they don't know what will happen. They rush decisions, they seek reassurance, they over-explain. Calm thinkers do the opposite. They slow down, they gather information, they wait. And waiting is a skill. Waiting without anxiety, waiting without spiraling, waiting without forcing certainty. You have a choice. That's the key. Calm people are not fearless. They just don't let fear drive. They acknowledge it, then they choose anyway. That's training. Now let's talk about decision-making. Under pressure, reactive people choose fast to escape discomfort. Calm thinkers choose well to protect outcomes. Calm thinkers ask better questions. What matters most right now? What's the next correct move? Reactive thinkers ask emotional questions. How do I get out of this feeling? How do I defend myself? That difference decides careers, relationships, lives. And it has nothing to do with personality. It has everything to do with discipline. You don't need their permission to slow down your response. You don't owe anyone an immediate reaction. That belief alone will change how you operate. Let's talk about conflict. Conflict exposes your training. When someone challenges you, your body reacts first. Heart rate increases, muscles tense. Calm thinkers don't eliminate that reaction, they override it. They breathe, they pause, they lower their voice. That's not weakness, that's control. And control creates authority. Reactive people lose respect in conflict. Calm people gain it, not because they dominate, because they remain grounded. You have a choice, that's the key. Here's the discipline you must build. You must practice calm when stakes are low. You don't wait for big moments, you train in small ones. Waiting in line, receiving criticism, dealing with inconvenience. These are your training grounds. Every time you pause instead of react, you strengthen the skill. Every time you breathe before responding, you reinforce control. What you practice becomes automatic. That's how calm becomes your default. It's not about being slow, it's about being intentional. Another truth you need to hear. Calm is contagious. Your calm affects rooms, meetings, conversations. When you stay calm, others slow down. When you react, others escalate. Calm leadership is invisible but powerful. And leadership is not a title, it's behavior. You don't need their permission to lead with calm. Now here's where people fail. They think calm means suppressing emotion. It doesn't. Suppression leaks. Discipline channels. You feel anger. You don't explode. You direct it. You feel fear. You don't freeze, you assess. You feel frustration. You don't vent, you solve. That's calm. It's not numbness, it's regulation. And regulation is trained. You have a choice. That's the key. Let me give you a rule to live by. Never make a decision in the peak of emotion. Pause, delay, create space. Even 5 seconds is enough. 5 seconds can prevent damage that lasts years. And remember this, calm people are not passive, they are precise. They choose words carefully. They choose actions deliberately. They don't waste energy on reaction. Energy is a resource. Calm conserves it. That's why calm thinkers outperform under pressure, not because they care less, because they control more. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission to stop explaining yourself emotionally. You don't need to justify your calm. And here's the final truth of this chapter. Calm is built the same way strength is built, through repetition, through resistance, through intention. You will fail sometimes. You will react. That doesn't mean you're not calm. It means you're training. Notice it, correct it, move on. That's discipline. You have a choice. That's the key. As calm becomes your skill, your thinking sharpens, your reactions shrink, your presence strengthens. And now that calm is no longer accidental, something else becomes clear. You'll notice how often your mind rehearses disaster, how often it prepares for failure instead of control. That's the next discipline. Because calm thinking is not just about the present moment, it's about what you practice mentally before the moment arrives. You built calm. Now it's time to stop rehearsing failure. Chapter 6. Stop rehearsing failure in your mind. Most people are training for failure every single day, and they don't even realize it. They call it realism. They call it being prepared. They call it being cautious. It's none of those things. It's rehearsal. And whatever you rehearse, your brain prepares for. That's the key. Your brain does not know the difference between what you imagine repeatedly and what you experience repeatedly. It responds to rehearsal. You have a choice. That's the key. Right now, ask yourself this honestly. What do you rehearse most in your mind? Worst-case scenarios, conversations going wrong, mistakes you haven't even made yet. You play them out in detail, the tone, the outcome, the embarrassment, and then you say, I'm just being realistic. No, you're programming your nervous system for chaos. It's not about awareness, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission to stop mentally sabotaging yourself. Here's the truth you need to accept. The brain prepares the body for whatever it rehearses most. If you rehearse danger, your body stays tense. If you rehearse failure, your confidence weakens. If you rehearse rejection, your behavior becomes defensive. That's not coincidence. That's conditioning. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's make this real. You have a presentation coming up, a conversation, a decision, and instead of rehearsing calm execution, you rehearse everything that could go wrong. What if I forget what to say? What if they judge me? What if I mess this up? Your heart rate increases, your breathing changes, your body tightens before anything even happens. You arrive already stressed, already guarded, already behind. Not because the situation was bad, because your rehearsal was. You trained for the wrong outcome. It's not about fear, it's about discipline. Fear shows up uninvited. Rehearsal is a choice, and most people choose the wrong one out of habit. You don't need their permission to break that habit. Let me be clear. Preparing for problems is not the same as rehearsing failure. Preparation asks, what's the plan if something goes wrong? Rehearsal asks, what if everything goes wrong? Preparation is brief and strategic. Rehearsal is repetitive and emotional. One builds confidence, the other drains it. You have a choice. That's the key. Most people stay stuck because they think anxiety equals responsibility. It doesn't. Anxiety is just unregulated rehearsal. You are not more responsible because you worry, you are just more exhausted. And exhaustion clouds judgment. The brain prepares the body for whatever it rehearses most. If you rehearse danger, your body stays tense. If you rehearse failure, your confidence weakens. If you rehearse rejection, your behavior becomes defensive. That's not coincidence, that's conditioning. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's make this real. You have a presentation coming up, a conversation, a decision, and instead of rehearsing calm execution, you rehearse everything that could go wrong. What if I forget what to say? What if they judge me? What if I mess this up? Your heart rate increases, your breathing changes, your body tightens. Before anything even happens, you arrive already stressed, already guarded, already behind. Not because the situation was bad, because your rehearsal was. You trained for the wrong outcome. It's not about fear, it's about discipline. Fear shows up uninvited. Rehearsal is a choice, and most people choose the wrong one out of habit. You don't need their permission to break that habit. Let me be clear. Preparing for problems is not the same as rehearsing failure. Preparation asks, what's the plan if something goes wrong? Rehearsal asks, what if everything goes wrong? Preparation is brief and strategic. Rehearsal is repetitive and emotional. One builds confidence, the other drains it. You have a choice. That's the key. Most people stay stuck because they think anxiety equals responsibility. It doesn't. Anxiety is just unregulated rehearsal. You are not more responsible because you worry, you are just more exhausted. And exhaustion clouds judgment. The brain prepares the body for whatever it rehearses most. If you rehearse danger, your body stays tense. If you rehearse failure, your confidence weakens. If you rehearse rejection, your behavior becomes defensive. That's not coincidence, that's conditioning. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's make this real. You have a presentation coming up, a conversation, a decision, and instead of rehearsing calm execution, you rehearse everything that could go wrong. What if I forget what to say? What if they judge me? What if I mess this up? Your heart rate increases, your breathing changes, your body tightens. Before anything even happens, you arrive already stressed, already guarded, already behind. Not because the situation was bad, because your rehearsal was. You trained for the wrong outcome. It's not about fear, it's about discipline. Fear shows up uninvited. Rehearsal is a choice, and most people choose the wrong one out of habit. You don't need their permission to break that habit. Let me be clear. Preparing for problems is not the same as rehearsing failure. Preparation asks, what's the plan if something goes wrong? Rehearsal asks, what if everything goes wrong? Preparation is brief and strategic. Rehearsal is repetitive and emotional. One builds confidence, the other drains it. You have a choice. That's the key. Most people stay stuck because they think anxiety equals responsibility. It doesn't. Anxiety is just unregulated rehearsal. You are not more responsible because you worry, you are just more exhausted. And exhaustion clouds judgment. The brain prepares the body for whatever it rehearses most. If you rehearse danger, your body stays tense. If you rehearse failure, your confidence weakens. If you rehearse rejection, your behavior becomes defensive. That's not coincidence, that's conditioning. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's talk about daily practice. Every time you catch yourself mentally spiraling into the future, stop. Pause. Then ask, am I rehearsing chaos or control? If it's chaos, redirect immediately. You don't argue with the thought. You don't shame yourself. You replace the rehearsal. I'll handle it. I'll stay calm. I'll respond, not react. Short, simple, repeatable. What you rehearse consistently, you become comfortable with, and comfort determines behavior under pressure. That's why disciplined thinkers look unshakable. They've already practiced calm. You have a choice. That's the key. Another rule you must live by: never rehearse outcomes you cannot control. Only rehearse responses you can. You can't control other people's reactions. You can control your tone. You can't control results. You can control effort. You can't control timing. You can control preparation. That's discipline. And discipline beats anxiety every time. It's not about eliminating uncertainty. It's about building trust in your response. You don't need their permission to trust yourself. Let me say this clearly. The future does not need your fear. It needs your readiness. Fear rehearses collapse. Readiness rehearses response. One weakens you, one prepares you. You have a choice. That's the key. And don't expect this to feel natural at first. Your mind is used to rehearsing failure. It will resist change. That's normal. Discipline always feels unnatural before it becomes automatic. Stick with it. Each time you redirect, you weaken the old pattern. Each time you rehearse control, you strengthen the new one. The brain prepares the body for whatever it rehearses most. Choose wisely, because your body listens, your nervous system listens, your behavior listens. This chapter is about responsibility. Not responsibility for outcomes, responsibility for rehearsal. You don't control what happens, you control what you practice mentally, and that practice shapes who you become. You've learned to stop resisting thoughts. You've learned to replace them. Now you've learned to stop rehearsing failure. Next, we move deeper. Because once you stop practicing chaos, something changes in how you speak to yourself. And that inner voice will either train you or tear you down. You stopped rehearsing collapse. Now it's time to discipline the voice inside your head.
Chapter 7. Discipline your inner voice like a coach, not a critic. Your inner voice is always talking. Always. The question is not if it speaks, the question is how it speaks. And most people let it speak without supervision. That's the problem. Because the way you speak to yourself determines how you perform. Say it clearly. You perform how you speak to yourself. Again, you perform how you speak to yourself. That's the key. Most people think their inner voice is their personality. It's not. It's a habit, and like any habit, it can be trained. You have a choice. That's the key. Right now, your inner voice is either coaching you forward or criticizing you into hesitation. And criticism feels familiar. That's why people accept it. You're not ready. You always mess this up. Why are you like this? That is not honesty. That is poor coaching. No elite performer trains under constant insult. No athlete improves with non-stop criticism. No leader grows under verbal abuse. Yet people do it to themselves every day. You don't need their permission to stop speaking to yourself this way. Here's the truth. Your inner voice is a tool. If you don't train it, it will default to fear, doubt, and repetition of the past. And repetition creates reality. A critic focuses on mistakes. A coach focuses on correction. A critic says, "That was terrible." A coach says, "Adjust this and continue." One drains energy, the other directs it. You perform how you speak to yourself. You have a choice. That's the key. Now here's something important. Your inner voice does not need to be motivational. It needs to be instructional. Motivation fades. Instructions remain useful. You've got this feels good. Slow your breathing works. Be confident is vague. Stand up straight and speak clearly is actionable. This is coaching. It's not about hype, it's about guidance. You don't need their permission to drop empty motivation and choose clarity. Let's talk about consistency. If you constantly criticize yourself, your brain associates effort with punishment, so eventually you avoid effort. That's not laziness, that's conditioning. The brain avoids pain.
A disciplined inner voice removes unnecessary pain. It corrects without attacking. Next time, prepare earlier, not you're always unprepared. One builds skill, one builds shame, and shame kills momentum. You perform how you speak to yourself. You have a choice. That's the key. Now here's the discipline you must practice daily. When you catch self-criticism, you don't argue with it, you replace it. Replace "I'm terrible at this" with "This is where I improve." Replace "I failed" with "I adjust." Short, direct, repeatable. This is not positive thinking. This is corrective thinking. It's not about pretending, it's about directing, and direction creates progress. Your inner voice should sound like a calm professional, not an emotional commentator. If it wouldn't help someone else improve, it won't help you either. You don't need their permission to fire the inner critic. Now listen closely. Your inner voice sets your baseline. If your baseline is harsh, you live tense. If your baseline is calm, you recover faster. Recovery speed matters more than perfection. Calm correction beats emotional reaction. That's the key. Another example, procrastination. The critic says, "You're lazy." That doesn't move you. The coach says, "Start for 5 minutes." That creates motion. Motion breaks resistance. You perform how you speak to yourself. Here's another rule. Never speak to yourself in a way that makes action harder. That includes sarcasm. That includes exaggeration. That includes labels. "I always fail." "I never get it right." Those are not facts. They are habits. And habits can be retrained. You have a choice. That's the key. This discipline takes time. At first, the critic will be louder. It's been in control for years. But every time you interrupt it, you weaken it. Every time you replace it, you train the coach. Consistency wins, not intensity. And don't confuse calm coaching with softness. A good coach is firm. Do it anyway. Stay focused. Finish strong. That's authority. You need authority inside your own mind. You don't need their permission to lead yourself. Let me say this clearly. If you wouldn't accept that tone from someone else, stop accepting it from yourself. You are with your inner voice more than anyone else. It should not be your enemy. It should be your guide. You perform how you speak to yourself. Say it again. You perform how you speak to yourself. This chapter is about reclaiming command, not emotional comfort, mental authority. You are not silencing your inner voice. You are training it. And once it's trained, something powerful happens. Your confidence stabilizes. Your reactions calm. Your focus sharpens. Because now, even under pressure, you're being coached, not attacked. And that sets the stage for the next discipline. Because even a well-trained inner voice struggles in a polluted environment. What you consume feeds how you think. What you surround yourself with trains your mind. You disciplined your inner voice. Now it's time to discipline what enters your mind. Chapter 8. Your environment feeds your thoughts. Choose carefully. Your mind is not sealed. It is not protected by default. It absorbs constantly. What you watch, what you listen to, what you tolerate, all of it feeds your thoughts. And your thoughts decide your life. That's the key. Most people work on mindset while poisoning their environment. They want clarity while surrounding themselves with noise. That never works. You have a choice. That's the key. Here is the rule you must live by. Protect your mind like you protect your body. Say it again. Protect your mind like you protect your body. You wouldn't eat garbage all day and expect strength, yet people consume mental garbage constantly and expect clarity. It doesn't happen. Your environment is either training you or draining you. There is no neutral. Let's talk about media. Endless news, social feeds, outrage cycles, comparison traps. You scroll, you watch, you absorb, and then you wonder why your thoughts feel scattered, why your attention is weak, why your mood is unstable. That's not a mystery, that's input. Constant noise creates mental weakness. Selective input builds clarity. You have a choice. That's the key. Most people say, I'm just staying informed. No, you're overstimulated. Information without intention is distraction. Your brain was not designed to process constant urgency. Every headline, every opinion, every emotional spike. That environment trains anxiety. Protect your mind like you protect your body. You don't need their permission to step away from noise. You don't owe anyone your attention. Attention is currency. Spend it wisely. Now let's talk about conversations. Who you talk to matters. What you talk about matters. Complaining, gossip, negativity disguised as realism. Those conversations feed your inner voice. And remember, you perform how you speak to yourself. If your environment constantly reinforces doubt, fear, and victimhood, your inner voice will echo it. That's not weakness, that's conditioning. You have a choice. That's the key. You don't have to argue. You don't have to convince. You can simply disengage. Silence is discipline. Listening selectively is discipline. It's not about arrogance, it's about protection. Protect your mind like you protect your body. Let's talk about routines. Your daily routine is your strongest environment. How you start the day, how you end it, what you do on autopilot. Those habits shape your thoughts without asking permission. If you wake up and immediately check your phone, you've surrendered control. You let the world set your mental tone. If you end the day overstimulated, your mind never recovers. That's not about willpower, it's about structure. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. You have a choice. That's the key. Build routines that create quiet. Quiet is not emptiness. Quiet is space. Space to think, space to choose, space to respond instead of react. Most people are uncomfortable with quiet because quiet exposes their thoughts, but that's exactly why you need it. Constant noise creates mental weakness. Selective input builds clarity. Protect your mind like you protect your body. Now let's address something uncomfortable. Some people are addicted to chaos. They say they want peace, but they consume conflict, drama, arguments, endless stimulation. Because chaos feels familiar, but familiarity is not health. You don't need their permission to step away from chaos, even if others call you boring, even if they don't understand. Clarity is not loud. Strength is not dramatic. Strong minds are selective. Here is a practical discipline. Audit your inputs. Ask yourself, what am I consuming daily? Does this strengthen me or scatter me? Be honest. If something consistently agitates you, reduce it. If something drains you, remove it. Not forever, intentionally. It's not about avoidance, it's about timing. You don't train strength in a hurricane. You train it in controlled conditions. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's talk about digital boundaries. Notifications are interruptions. Interruptions fracture focus. If your attention is constantly pulled, your thinking becomes shallow. Deep thinking requires protection. Turn off what doesn't matter. Silence what distracts. You don't need their permission to be unreachable sometimes. Availability is not a virtue. Presence is. Protect your mind like you protect your body. Now let's address something uncomfortable. Some people are addicted to chaos. They say they want peace, but they consume conflict, drama, arguments, endless stimulation. Because chaos feels familiar, but familiarity is not health. You don't need their permission to step away from chaos, even if others call you boring, even if they don't understand. Clarity is not loud. Strength is not dramatic. Strong minds are selective. Here is a practical discipline. Audit your inputs. Ask yourself, what am I consuming daily? Does this strengthen me or scatter me? Be honest. If something consistently agitates you, reduce it. If something drains you, remove it. Not forever, intentionally. It's not about avoidance, it's about timing.
You don't train strength in a hurricane. You train it in controlled conditions. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's talk about digital boundaries. Notifications are interruptions. Interruptions fracture focus. If your attention is constantly pulled, your thinking becomes shallow. Deep thinking requires protection. Turn off what doesn't matter. Silence what distracts. You don't need their permission to be unreachable sometimes. Availability is not a virtue. Presence is. Protect your mind like you protect your body. Now let's talk about physical environment. Cluttered space creates cluttered thinking. Noise creates agitation. Order creates calm. This is not aesthetic, it's psychological. Clean space, clear surfaces, intentional surroundings. Your brain responds to signals. Order signals control. Chaos signals threat. You have a choice. That's the key. Even small changes matter. A quiet morning, a walk without headphones, time without input. Those moments recalibrate your mind. They remind you that you are not behind, that you are not rushed, that you can choose your pace. And pace matters. Rushed minds make poor decisions. Calm minds see clearly. That's the advantage. Now here's the truth most people avoid. You cannot think clearly in an environment designed to distract you. That's not a character flaw. That's biology. So stop blaming yourself. Start changing inputs. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. You have a choice. That's the key. Let me say this directly. If you want better thoughts, build a better environment. Thoughts don't appear randomly. They are reactions to surroundings. Change the surroundings, the thoughts follow. This chapter is not about isolation. It's about intention. You still engage with the world, but on your terms. Selective, deliberate, disciplined. Protect your mind like you protect your body. Say it again. Protect your mind like you protect your body. As you do this, something shifts. Your inner voice becomes calmer. Your focus strengthens. Your reactions slow. Not because life changed, because your inputs did. And now, with a disciplined environment, something powerful becomes possible. Consistency. Because once your mind is protected, patterns stabilize, and stable thinking creates predictable confidence. You chose your environment. Now you're ready to build the confidence that comes from consistency.
Chapter 9. Consistent thinking creates predictable confidence. Most people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence is loud. They think confidence is emotional. They think confidence appears when you feel ready. That's wrong. Confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is familiarity. Say it clearly. Confidence is consistency, not emotion. Again, confidence is consistency, not emotion. That's the key. Real confidence comes from knowing how you think under pressure, from trusting your mental process, from having proof, internal proof, that you can handle yourself. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's destroy a myth right now. Confident people are not fearless. They are predictable to themselves. They know how they respond. They know how they reset. They know how they think. That familiarity creates calm. Inconsistent thinkers feel confident one day and insecure the next, not because life changed, because their thinking did. Consistent thinkers stabilize, and stability creates confidence. Confidence is consistency, not emotion. Look at athletes. The best performers don't rely on hype, they rely on routine. Same warm-up, same mental cues, same focus. Why? Because repetition builds trust. They don't hope they'll perform well, they expect to execute their process. That expectation is confidence. You have a choice. That's the key. Leaders are the same. Strong leaders are not emotionally reactive. They don't swing with every outcome. They think consistently.
They assess, they decide, they move, even under pressure. That consistency builds trust, both internally and externally. People trust leaders who are steady. Leaders trust themselves because they know they're thinking. That's confidence. It's not about charisma, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission to stop chasing emotional confidence. Let's talk about bravado. Bravado is loud confidence with no foundation. It collapses under pressure because it's built on feeling, not process. When emotion drops, confidence disappears. That's why bravado overcompensates. It talks more, it explains more, it reacts more. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. Confidence is consistency, not emotion. You have a choice. That's the key. Now here's how consistent thinking is built. Not through motivation, through standards. You decide how you think when things go wrong. You decide how you talk to yourself under pressure. You decide how you reset after mistakes. And then you repeat it, over and over. Eventually, your brain stops panicking because it recognizes the pattern. I've been here before. I know what to do. That recognition is confidence. It's not about optimism, it's about familiarity. You don't need their permission to build confidence this way. Let's make this practical. When something goes wrong, most people ask emotional questions. Why does this always happen to me? What's wrong with me? That creates instability. Consistent thinkers ask process questions. What's the next correct step? What do I control right now? Same situation, different thinking, different outcome. Confidence is consistency, not emotion. Another example, public speaking, difficult conversations, high-stakes moments. Insecure thinkers focus on how they feel. Confident thinkers focus on what they do. They rely on structure, preparation, breathing, pacing, not mood. That's why their confidence shows up even when nerves are present. They trust the process. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's the discipline you must adopt. Stop asking, do I feel confident? Start asking, am I thinking consistently? Feelings fluctuate. Processes don't. If your thinking process is stable, your confidence will follow. Confidence is not something you summon, it's something you earn through repetition. Let me say this clearly. Every time you regulate your thoughts instead of reacting, you deposit confidence. Every time you replace a negative loop with control, you deposit confidence. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you deposit confidence. Over time, those deposits compound, and one day you realize something has changed. You trust yourself. That's confidence. You have a choice. That's the key. Now here's why many people never build confidence. They look for proof externally, compliments, results, validation. That's unstable. External confidence depends on circumstances. Internal confidence depends on behavior, specifically mental behavior. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. Discipline creates predictability. Predictability creates trust. Trust creates confidence. Confidence is consistency, not emotion. You don't need their permission to stop chasing reassurance. Let's talk about setbacks. Setbacks don't destroy confidence. Inconsistent thinking does. When something fails, confident thinkers don't collapse. They adjust. They don't personalize failure. They analyze it. They don't spiral. They recalibrate because they've practiced that response. That practice is what you're building. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's a rule to live by. Never judge your confidence by how you feel in the moment. Judge it by how quickly you regain control. Recovery speed is the real measure. Fast recovery means strong thinking habits. Slow recovery means inconsistent discipline. And recovery speed can be trained. That's good news. Another truth: confidence grows quietly. You won't feel it arriving. You'll notice it when pressure hits. You'll pause instead of panic. You'll think instead of react. You'll speak calmly instead of rushing. And you'll realize you're different now. Not because you became fearless, because you became consistent. Confidence is consistency, not emotion. Say it again. Confidence is consistency, not emotion. This chapter is about patience. Mental confidence doesn't come from one breakthrough, it comes from repeated discipline. Daily regulation, daily replacement, daily awareness. No drama, no hype, just consistency. You have a choice. That's the key. And here's the final piece. Once your confidence becomes predictable, you stop chasing certainty. You stop over-explaining. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop needing approval because you trust your thinking. And that trust changes how you move through the world. This brings us to the final discipline: responsibility. Because once you know all this, once you understand how thoughts shape outcomes, there is no excuse left, only choice. You built awareness, you built discipline, now it's time to face the truth. Think better daily or accept the consequences.
Chapter 10. Think better daily, or accept the consequences. This is where excuses end. No more theories, no more techniques, no more hoping something clicks. This chapter is about responsibility, because here is the truth most people avoid. No one is coming to save you from your thinking. Not your partner, not your job, not a new opportunity. Your life is the result of what you think consistently. Say it clearly. Your future is built one thought at a time. Again, your future is built one thought at a time. That's the key. Every outcome you're living in started as a pattern of thought. Every habit, every relationship, every level of confidence. You didn't arrive here by accident. And that's not an insult, that's power. You have a choice, that's the key. Most people want change without responsibility. They want relief without discipline. They want clarity without effort. It doesn't work that way. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. Your mind doesn't drift toward strength, it drifts toward habit, and habits form whether you're intentional or not. That's why this matters. Every day you allow unchecked thinking, you're choosing a future. Every day you delay mental discipline, you're voting for repetition. Repetition creates reality, and reality doesn't care about your intentions. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's remove all confusion. You don't need their permission to think better. You don't need approval to interrupt a negative loop. You don't need validation to pause before reacting. What you need is consistency. Thinking better daily is not dramatic. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's boring. And it works. Most people sabotage themselves by waiting for motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is not. Thinking better daily means you intervene early. You catch the thought. You replace it. You redirect. Over and over. Your future is built one thought at a time. Think about your mornings. How you start your day matters because your first thoughts set the tone. Wake up and scroll, consume noise, compare. That's a choice. Wake up and breathe, ground, decide your focus. That's a choice. Small decisions, big consequences. That's the key. Most people underestimate how fast thoughts compound. One negative thought doesn't destroy your life. 10,000 unchecked ones will. That's not fear, that's math. You have a choice. That's the key. Let's talk about accountability.
If your thinking is chaotic, your life will be unstable. If your thinking is disciplined, your life will stabilize. No exceptions. People blame stress, circumstances, other people. But stress reveals thinking habits. It doesn't create them. Pressure exposes the system you've built, and you built it. That's uncomfortable and empowering, because if you built it, you can rebuild it. You don't need their permission to take responsibility. Here's the rule you must live by from now on. If you don't consciously choose your thoughts, you accept the consequences. That's it. No negotiation. You can choose discipline now, or you can accept pain later. Both are choices. Your future is built one thought at a time. Let's be specific. Daily thinking discipline looks like this. You notice emotional shifts early. You question assumptions immediately. You refuse to rehearse chaos. You don't indulge self-pity. You don't amplify frustration. You don't let one thought hijack the day. Not because you're perfect, because you're disciplined. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. And discipline compounds. 10 minutes of mental control today saves years of regret later. That's not exaggeration, that's reality. You have a choice. That's the key. Now here's what this chapter demands from you. Stop outsourcing responsibility for your inner world. Stop saying, "That's just how I am." That sentence destroys futures. You are not fixed, you are trained, and you can retrain. Your inner voice, your attention, your reactions, all trainable. But only if you decide to take ownership. You don't need their permission to do this work. Another truth. Thinking better daily doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means you become capable. You still face uncertainty. You still face pressure. You still face setbacks. But you don't collapse because you trust your thinking. That trust becomes stability. That stability becomes confidence. That confidence becomes momentum. Your future is built one thought at a time. Say it again. Your future is built one thought at a time. This is where people quit, because discipline is lonely, quiet, uncelebrated. No one claps when you interrupt a negative thought. No one sees you choose calm, but outcomes see it. Results reflect it. And one day your life will look different. Not because of luck, because of daily decisions. You have a choice. That's the key. So here's your line in the sand. From today forward, you stop letting your mind run on autopilot. You stop identifying with every emotion. You stop rehearsing failure. You observe, you choose, you replace. Daily. No drama, no waiting. Because no one is coming to save you from your thinking. And that's the best news you'll ever hear. Because it means your future is in your hands. One thought at a time. This book ends here, but the discipline starts now. Think better daily, or accept the consequences.
You don't need a new life. You need new thinking. Every calm response, every focused decision, every moment of confidence you admire in others, it all begins the same way, with a controlled thought. From this moment forward, the challenge is simple but not easy. Catch the thought. Question the thought. Replace the thought. Do this daily. Do this relentlessly. Do this even when it feels automatic to fall back. Because the moment you control your thoughts, you control your emotions. When you control your emotions, you control your actions. And when you control your actions, you control your future. Start now. Your mind is listening.